350 grams of anamorphic. Let's talk about 350 grams of anamorphic. So I hold in my hands the Laowa Nanomorph 27mm 1.5x anamorphic. 350 grams, it's about $1,500. If you're watching this video in the week it comes out, it's still on a Kickstarter where you're getting a discount for it. And I've been shooting with it for the last week. And I'm like wildly impressed at what this lens is able to do for $1,500. So let's give a little context to what we're talking about first. First off, Super 35 coverage. It is not designed to cover a full frame sensor. I'm shooting it on the DJI 4D full frame sensor, but I'm shooting it in Super 35 mode, so I only get 4K resolution on the 6K 4D. I think if we had an 8K 4D, we'd get 6K resolution. 4K resolution for the job I'm delivering is just plenty of resolution, and I will happily trade a little bit of resolution for better image quality and better stabilization, which I'm getting out of this combination. Secondly, it is only a 1.5x squeeze. But since Super 35 mode on the 4D is roughly like a 16:9 sensor, once I've done the 1.5 squeeze, I'm still ending up with something just a little bit pretty close to 239:1. So it's still giving us sort of an image that lands right where I want it to with the Super 35 sensor size on the 4D. So it's really, a lot of this review is going to be very 4D heavy, which doesn't mean you can't shoot this not on the 4D. You can shoot this on any Super 35 or APS-C size sensor. But it comes natively in DMount, which tells me I think they think this is going to be popular on the 4D. It's a great little lens for all sorts of stuff. I've been using it on the 4D, which is giving me like phenomenal image quality beyond what I was expecting at this price point. So a little background on why I'm testing it. First off, I'm testing it because Laowa mentioned that they would let me. But secondly, I'm testing it because I'm doing a job where a camera, Alexa, 2X, Atlas Anamorphics, and I have a bunch of action work that I'm doing on the 4D because stabilizing Alexa and all that stuff is really complicated, and I actually quite like the 4D imagery, and it cuts kind of well with the Alexa stuff, so I can give up my time code input and I can put it on a 4D. And so the idea of like, oh, well, at least I'll get a 1.5x squeeze out of my bike stuff, so I still have some anamorphic personality when it's intercutting with my A camera, was really appealing and very exciting to me. As you can see from the sample footage, very pleasing, satisfying imagery. It seems like a really well-designed, well-made lens for this kind of work. We were projecting dailies last week on like a 20-foot screen, and the DP and the first AC and I were like, man, you could actually do like a whole feature on this, like 4D and these anamorphics, like really satisfying imagery. The one I'm holding in my hand is 27. I've been shooting with the 27 and the 50, so they open to a 2.8. Now, A camera lenses open on this job open to a 2, the Atlas. These only open to a 2.8, and I'm gonna be honest, this is one, I don't know if it's a criticism, because it's a $1,500 anamorphic lens. One thing to be conscious of is I find the optical quality of these lenses to really start to be nice around a 4. They are fine at a 2.8. And let me tell you, I'm old. I have shot like 70s anamorphics, like the 70s Panavision high speeds, where like you open them all the way up to wide open and like it just looks, I can't believe Panavision let them in the world. Like it doesn't look Panavision anymore. It's not that bad. It's just like, you notice a little bit. You're like, it's not quite as nice as a 2.8. This is very common in anamorphic. 90% of my anamorphic life, I'm on lenses, pretty much everything but like the Zeiss Master anamorphics and the Cook anamorphics. Pretty much everything else, when you go all the way to wide open, the quality falls apart just a little bit. So with modern fast sensors, you know, we're shooting on the DJI 4D, we're shooting at 800 or 1000. You're doing any kind of DXR work, we're shooting at a 4 and we're stacking up a bunch of NDs, and that's just life and it's okay. If you desperately need the 2.8, you can use it, I think. I think it is a usable 2.8, which is why I think it's there. But the flip side of it is you're going to notice a little quality loss. The reason why I'm still glad it's there, I mean, there's a world in which they just built it where the lens only opens to a 4. I think there's a marketing pressure to have the wider aperture, but I also think there are situations where you want that wider aperture where the image quality loss is worth it. You're still always going to have that sweet spot in a lens from like about 1 stop in from wide open to around 3 stops in from wide open. So on this lens, a 4 to a 5, 4, 5, 6, and 8 are like the sweet spot, and we've been very happy with what we've been getting out of them. So they're available in 3 flavors. I've been shooting the blue flare. They're available with a red ring, which is like the warm flare, and they're also available silver, which is a clear flare. I've been really enjoying the blue flare. I think the silver flare is going to be most popular if you're delivering a lot of HDR. There have been some reports from people delivering a lot more HDR jobs that when you are doing HDR, you want a more neutral color flare, because really saturated colors in a flare that looks great in standard definition doesn't look as good on your HDR deliverable. This job that I'm doing right now may or may not end up with an HDR. It's more likely to have a festival run, which is going to be projection, which isn't going to be HDR on a TV. So I'm leaning very okay with, I really like the color of the flares. There's some blues and then there's some greens, and I quite like them. I think that Laowa has tuned it really well. I also like that you can just buy them in warm or cool or silver. For me, anamorphic's not just about flare, it's also about lens personality. It's about the way the out of focus areas look. It's about how everything relates to each other. It's imagery I really grew up with and I'm very attached to. And so, like, you know, when I had this 4D job and Laowa at the same time was like, hey, I have these 1.5 anamorphics, I was like, this could really come together well. And I think, I mean, you guys are looking at some of the footage in front of you. I think it has. The same rules apply to every other lens, right? As soon as you get your hands on it, you want to test it at every aperture to see how it's responding at every aperture. They're super lightweight. We've got a really nice motion here that works really well with, you know, because the motor on the 4D is big, is small. It's not like a massive, like, pressed-in motor or something. Like, it's a small motor designed to pull, like, vintage lenses in this. So the fact that it's got a nice movement is really nice. It's nicely balanced. I'm sort of shocked we're in this position where, you know, I was watching the dailies up on a 20-foot screen and I was like, God, this is just nice. It's just like really nice, pleasing imagery that, you know, 4D with this, cutting really well with like Alexa and Atlas. I've been shooting with the 27 and the 50. Love them. I don't know that I need anything wider than a 27 because I think the optical drawbacks are going to be too big. Like if they drop a 16, I think we're going to notice errors. Like there's going to be, like, it's harder to make those really wide anamorphics. But I tell you what I'd love, 75, 85, 95, 90, something, like a real close-up. Again, also hard, might get too heavy, but something a little longer than the 50. I've been loving that 50, but I'd really love something longer. So that is Laowa Anamorphic. I've been shooting blue flare. We got a whole bunch of footage for you to watch, and all of this footage is from a project called Gold Status, which hopefully will be around, and you'll hear me talk a lot more about because it's sort of one of my 2 or 3 big jobs this summer, and there'll be some other Gold Status videos with tools that I played. So, as always, please, if you enjoy this stuff, subscribe and like it and share it with your friends, and I would like to make more because it's, I don't know, I get to play with cool stuff, and I should share with you guys my experiences with that, I think is the deal. Anyway, have fun, check it out, and if you're watching today, the Kickstarter has a week left.